Hello, my friend. My name is Veronica Winters. Welcome to my studio. Welcome to Amsterdam, the beautiful heart of the Dutch Golden Age, where art, commerce, and culture flourished in the 17th century. At the center of this creative explosion was Rembrandt van Rijn, one of history's greatest painters and printmakers. Today, let's step into the Rembrandt House Museum, the very home where he lived, loved, flourished, and created some of his most famous paintings. Join me to explore Rembrandt's life, his art, oil painting techniques, and what makes this house a unique window into his world. Born in 1606 in a miller's household in Leiden, Rembrandt moved to Amsterdam around 1631, driven by financial needs and career opportunities. Leiden's declining economy and lack of protectors for local artists against outside competition pushed him toward the thriving city, nicknamed the Golden Swan. Amsterdam's robust art market and a relative lack of royal patronage in The Hague made it an ideal destination for the artist. Whenever I need to figure out what I need to do next as an artist, I always go back and read some biographies of a famous artist to understand what they did or how they managed their career, because it gives me ideas or inspiration what I need to do as an artist promoting my art. There, Rembrandt quickly rose as a leading portrait artist. By 1639, at age 33, he was married to his first wife, Saskia, and managed a flourishing studio, mentoring many students. Teaching provided substantial income, and while some students like Flink became technical rivals, none matched Rembrandt's visionary genius. Before purchasing his own home, Rembrandt lived in a grand house owned by Henrik Eilenberg, a prominent international art dealer who had facilitated Rembrandt's first sale back in Leiden. Eilenberg invited him to join his academy in Amsterdam, a hub for producing and trading art, importing works from Italy, and handling commissions, etchings, and appraisals. Rembrandt's eventual split with him reduced his portrait commissions, but marked a pivotal shift in his career. Saskia, the cousin of art dealer Henrik Eilenberg, married Rembrandt at 21, elevating his social standing. Orphaned at 12, she hailed from a prominent family, while Rembrandt, though talented and well-connected, came from a modest background of bakers and millers. His deep affection for Saskia shone through in numerous paintings. She was an inspiration and model for the artist. The couple had 4 children, but 3 died in infancy. Only their one son, Titus, survived to adulthood, though Rembrandt outlived him. Saskia's death shortly after childbirth left a joint estate. After Saskia's passing, he lived with a mistress, while he met another woman, Henrike Stachels, with whom he lived basically till the end of his days. In 1639, at the height of his fame, Rembrandt purchased a grand house for an insane amount of money, a staggering sum that reflected his success as an artist as well as his ambition and lavish lifestyle he always gravitated towards. However, he didn't have the entire sum to pay for it right away, even in installments. This house, built in 1606, became his home studio and art dealership for nearly 2 decades of his life, until financial ruin forced him to leave around 1660. During his residence in the house, Rembrandt created some of his finest oil paintings, establishing himself as Amsterdam's most sought-after painter in the 1630s. Early in this period, he completed roughly one commissioned portrait per month alongside his other artistic pursuits, a remarkable feat given the exceptional quality and originality of his art. While his paintings of female figures may not appeal to all, they don't really appeal to me. His male portraits are often extraordinary. His clients included merchants, Mennonites, and remonstrants, though never royalty. Here's the fun fact. Only the wealthiest men wore black clothes due to its high price tag because the indigo dye came from India. Faced with the restrictive and often drab black clothing of his time, Rembrandt devised creative ways to portray Amsterdam's wealthy in his numerous commissioned portraits. He employed unique poses, incorporated luxury items, or crafted unusual group compositions to bring individuality to his work. Unlike many artists who idealized their subjects, Rembrandt captured their raw humanity, portraying them in contemplative, subtle poses without regal attire. His subjects appear thoughtful and introspective, set against simple backgrounds, sometimes dressed in exotic clothing from his prop collection. Rembrandt had an amazing sense of light, focusing illumination on the face while allowing the rest of the composition to recede into shadow. His portraits feature dramatic contrast, distinctive brushwork, and thick paint application. Up close, the textured, almost abstract paint appears as mere lumps, but from a distance it transforms into strikingly realistic forms. Rembrandt gained fame in Amsterdam with his 1632 masterpiece, The Anatomy Lesson of Dr. Nikolai Stahl, commissioned by the Surgeons Guild. Each member contributed to the cost of the painting, and it became the property of the organization. So what's different about this one is his ability to create a dynamic composition with a single light source. This is the most famous painting, The Night Watch. This is a monumental group of Amsterdam's civic guard that's in the museum in Amsterdam. This masterpiece defined tradition with its dynamic composition, striking use of light, color, and shadow, fluid figure movement, and vivid, lifelike energy. In 1578, Amsterdam shifted allegiance from King Philip II to William of Orange, and the civic militia, beyond defending the city, symbolized the power of the wealthy elite. The city's 20 militia companies held significant influence, and Rembrandt's commissioned work was displayed among other artworks in the Great Hall. Completed in just 2 years, measuring 143 by 172 inches, featured figures with varying prominence based on their financial contributions. And the richly dressed captain and lieutenant dominate the foreground, with Rembrandt crafting a lovely scene of moving figures rather than static, aligned portraits. Despite its brilliance, the Night Watch did not lead to more group commissions for Rembrandt, though he remained popular, approachable, and fashionable. And here are a few other huge canvases of militia guards. hanging in the Rijksmuseum. Personally, I like one of them more than the Night Watch because of the color use, elaborate costumes, and fascinating faces that make the compositions less staged. Rembrandt also took an interest in local landscapes, creating etchings and oil paintings. Landscape with a stone bridge, for instance, is one of my favorites that I copied years ago learning painting techniques. Unfortunately, landscapes were not popular among his clients, and the artist stopped creating them in 1650s. Painting of nudes wasn't prohibited, but at the same time it was considered immoral in Amsterdam, so such paintings as Bathsheba bathing or woman bathing in a stream were considered edgy and inappropriate. His lover Staffels was the model for those paintings. Mostly she posed for portraits like Flora. Rembrandt wasn't interested in making his women sexual in art. For instance, his painting Lucretia is a fully clothed figure, defying the convention of painting her in the nude. So he never painted the nudes for the sake of the nudes. Yeah, I think he was more interested in communicating a story. There are small rooms in the house that display Rembrandt's etchings. Many are covered with a piece of heavy cloth to protect them from light. Both Rembrandt and Levens, his friend and rival, were known for paintings and etchings. They worked in gentle rivalry, creating etchings as reproductions of their paintings for the most part. Etchings always existed in several states, and there are quite a few etchings displayed in the museum. Let's look at the artist's oil painting technique. Rembrandt did paint on huge canvases that were practical and cost-effective, and they were lighter than panels and could be rolled up. He used a unique mixture of quartz and clay to prepare his canvases, and that was this became known because of the artifacts found in the pit next to the house. One of his oil painting techniques involved the use of back of his brush, scratching out the wet paint to reveal lighter passages to make the light on the hair, strands, and such. He also created mottled effect on an old skin by adding tiny spots of color after the paint has dried. His realistic jewelry pieces consisted of abstract lumps of thick paint. This rich layered impasto technique looks three-dimensional, sculptural, and unique to Rembrandt. He applied paint with a palette knife, probably in many layers, and with addition of other materials like charcoal, bits of egg and grit to build these very thick textures. He was a master of light, and its placement on a face was always deliberate. In grouped paintings, he made some figures backlit diagonally and others in bright clothing to differentiate among them. Soft glowing light feels like a real lamp is hidden somewhere behind the canvas to light up the scene. If you paint, you know how difficult it is to create and control the light in oil painting, and he was a master of it. Besides his paint studies, he always signed his work first with his initials and then with his first name only, like great Italian masters. His voracious collecting both of Roman emperors, Venetian glassware, shells, and weapons fed his art, filling his home with inspiration for his painting. So, what happened to Rembrandt? Rembrandt's downfall. Rembrandt's lavish lifestyle and a faltering art market led to his bankruptcy in 1656, with his house auctioned off in 1658 for less
money than he purchased it for. In his early 50s, the artist's downfall was not solely due to his excessive spending, but stemmed from a complex mix of factors. I read an entire book on Rembrandt to understand why he failed. And so, despite falling out of fashion around 1649, Rembrandt never lacked clients and continued to secure portrait commissions. However, some patrons' friends like Jan Six commissioned less in the 1650s, favoring classical Italian art. And that's what I noticed, that the art style or fashion changed, and many successful former students of Rembrandt, like Govert Flinck and Ferdinand Bol, emerged as rivals, embracing the fashionable Flemish style. Rembrandt grew less sociable, possibly more, um, I don't know, obnoxious, which hindered his ability to attract prominent merchants and industrialists who basically purchased art. But he continued painting surgeons and physicians. Uncompromising, he refused patrons' requests to alter finished works unless fully paid, often opting to auction his art instead. For instance, Italian art collector Don Antonio Raffa commissioned one of Rembrandt's finest paintings, Aristotle contemplating a bust of Homer, a painting with a thoughtful figure, masterful use of light, restrained color, and richly textured details like the golden chain rendered in thick abstract oil paint. Another piece for Raffa, Alexander, or A Man in Armor, initially met with criticism by the collector, but Rembrandt stood firm on its quality. And this is one of my favorite paintings. Like, he knew what he was worth, and he didn't want to bend to clients' demands if he thought that the art was good. So, on top of his problems, Holland of 1650s experienced economic recession driven by foreign conflicts and wars, and that impacted the artist and his potential clients, further complicating his financial struggles. So Rembrandt's introspective self-portraits from the 1650s show the most beautiful loose brushwork, painting wrinkles and uneven skin tone on a dark background. Some have a sad, troubling gaze, others exhibit the calm and confidence of an older man. Unlike faces in numerous commissions, these self-portraits were records of his own life, age, bankruptcy, and sadness. Nonetheless, even this art got sold off to European courts. So that means that he was always quite popular and accepted as an artist. So Rembrandt's financial mismanagement, lavish lifestyle, change in art style popularity, the country's economy, and the artist's short temper led to his downfall, forcing him to move to a modest rented house on the opposite side of town. He spent his last decade in a rented house. The neighbors were quite poor and not the customers who ordered commissions. There were many gossip stories about Rembrandt's spending habits, and some of them may be true, as Saskia's family was always at odds with Rembrandt, trying to protect her inheritance from him. It was also said that Rembrandt sold Saskia's grave, tapped into his daughter's small inheritance from her mother, and even his granddaughter's one. I know it sounds unbelievable, but at the same time, I can say that it could be true. There are records of Rembrandt's borrowings from his patrons and others willing to lend him money in exchange for his art later on. Rembrandt died at the age of 63, and had no customary funeral of the rich in Amsterdam with food, drinks, music, and a night torch-lit procession. One of the world's greatest artists was buried in a rented grave in the Westerkerk. During Rembrandt's life in the house, Amsterdam was a very wealthy city. It quadrupled in population size, and there were tons of commissions coming from merchants and different religious groups. The Reformation was against the arts, preferring bare walls in the churches. However, other faiths created demand. The Catholic Church was one, and Rembrandt painted many biblical scenes for patrons. So, what makes the Rembrandt's house so special? The house is dedicated to Rembrandt's life and work, thanks to two artists who decided to buy the house to convert it into a museum. Restored in the early 20th century and opened in 1911, um, it uses a 1656 bankruptcy inventory document of forced sale to reconstruct Rembrandt's living and working spaces with necessary accuracy. The list that was drawn up before the sale, listing all of his possessions room by room. When you visit the house, find this inventory list in the epilogue room of the museum. Rembrandt lived far above the average. You'd be surprised to see the size of his three-story house. It might not impress us today as much as it would impress people in the 17th century. His mansion, with its elegant facade and spacious room, was in an upscale neighborhood alongside other artists, merchants, and dealers. Although the demographic did change during his stay there. His studio, filled with exotic collectibles, was a stark contrast to the utilitarian workshops of artisans. Rembrandt's wealth, fame, and spending habits during this period allowed him to amass a vast art collection and employ art students as assistants. Visitors can step into his kitchen with its cozy fireplace, his bedroom with a 17th century box bed that looks like a chest with doors, and his studio where he painted his commissions and masterpieces. There are many art items on display in the rooms. For example, shown artifacts like the pipes for smoking tobacco, traces of pigments, and the quartz clay pots found in the cesspit connect us to his creative process in daily life. You'd be lucky to catch a paint-making demonstration in the artist studio where tools are on display, but I didn't. There are old books, brushes and palettes, canvas easels, and art on the walls. Rembrandt probably collected them himself. The artist was an avid collector and spent enormous sums of money at auctions on his exotic clothing, props, jewelry, musical instruments, books, ceramics, a death mask, and numerous costumes, some of which he used in his paintings. The collections continue with Roman plaster casts, furniture, armor, weapons, porcelains, exotic objects like turtles and alligator, corals, precious metal coins, and so on. Rembrandt had a great appreciation of classical art that's apparent in his immense collection of drawings and engravings, including Raphael and Andrea Mantegna. There is a dedicated floor for art students with easels installed in a subdivided space with partitions. In the book that I read, the author mentions that the artist had about 50 art students at any given time, and they lived on his premises or a rental warehouse next door. Some students made official copies of Rembrandt's work that were marked as such and sold for a different price during his lifetime. So this habit often presents an attribution problem today. The museum has an attic space dedicated to Rembrandt's etchings. The museum's collection includes nearly all of Rembrandt's 400 etchings, some of his original copper plates, and works by his teacher Peter Lastman and pupils like Ferdinand Bol. There is a printing press and tools around it where a local artist does demonstrations in printmaking showing Rembrandt's techniques from replicas of his copper plates. Are decorated with furniture, vases, black and white tile, and art on the walls that reminded me of Vermeer's interior paintings. There is also a cute tiny room in the house showing a table with a chair to write letters, I guess. What sets this museum apart is its immersive experience. Daily demonstrations show how Rembrandt ground paint and etchings, bringing his art techniques to life. Rembrandt's art, defined by light, darkness, and raw humanity, was born in these rooms amidst personal triumphs and tragedies. His nearly 2,000 drawings, 300 paintings, and 400 etchings from his career demonstrate his versatility across portraits, history paintings, and self-portraits that reveal his creative output.
I recommend buying a ticket online to avoid crowds during the season. And in general, Amsterdam is a very busy place. So just be mindful of time constraints. And it usually takes about maybe an hour to walk through the house to see his art and enjoy the lifestyle of the 17th century Holland. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I appreciate it. Do you like Rembrandt? What's your favorite piece by him? And let me know. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please share it with your friends. I'm not just saying it, it really helps. And if you're interested in art, check out veronicasart.com and subscribe for new blog posts and specials. Bye-bye.